here from Standing Out Online and a new episode of Coffee with Kate live. And I'm super excited to have my dear friend, my dear friend, Amy Matthews from her business, Amy Matthews Integrated Marketing. Hello, Amy. Thanks for being here.
So excited to be here.
Thank you so much. So we're going to have a really dynamic conversation today about customer-focused or customer-centric marketing. So let's start off. Before we ask questions, I want to kind of introduce how I know Amy. So I've known Amy through eWomen Network. All of you who are listening and listening on the replay know that I talk about eWomen Network all the time. And I met Amy when she was the executive managing director of the Atlanta eWomen chapter, of which she recently passed the torch to somebody new. And so she's full-time. She's been full-time in her business all along. And then I went to visit her and got to meet her family. And so since then, Amy and I have become fast friends. And she's one of the smartest, and I mean this, she's one of the smartest marketing people I know. She has one of the best marketing minds. So we were a little delayed in me getting you on this show, but you know, I'm bringing Coffee with Kate back in a brand new way. I've been online for a while. In fact, I don't know if you noticed, Amy, one of the little comments on one of those shots in the intro was when you were in Sweden and you said, watching Coffee with Kate, glad Coffee with Kate is back. And that was a few years ago.
When I remember that.
Right? Yeah. So anyway, thank you for making the time to be here. So let's dig right in. Okay. Let's talk about what is client-centered marketing.
Okay. So it is such a fundamentally simple process that everyone messes up. First and foremost, I honestly believe that everything in business begins and ends with your customer, your client, your patient, whatever you call them. Some people call them guests. It really doesn't matter what you call them. What matters is that they are the center of everything you do, from how you answer the telephone, how it feels when they walk through the door, if you have a brick and mortar location, any of those things. It's about putting them at the center of everything they do. Now, customer-centric takes it a step further in that you have to truly understand who they are. So that's number one. Now, most of you are listening and saying, oh my gosh, this woman is going to talk about my target audience, my avatar. I've heard that done.
Ideal client, right fit client.
Yeah, exactly. They're talking about all those things. Yes, and you have to go further than that. Not only who they are demographically, but more about them. What are the attributes that make them and influence their purchase decisions? And most especially, why do they buy? And understanding why they buy. And then the last component of being customer-centric is adapting the way you talk to them, the way you message to them, the way you show up for them in a way that resonates with them and clears through the clutter, which is the sense of sameness that everyone else is out there selling to them. You want to talk to them, not sell at them. And you can't do that without being customer-centric, putting their needs and why they buy first.
Let's talk a little bit about, you don't have to name names or anything, but let's talk about the kinds of customers that you have. Who are the types of people that come to you to help them with their marketing initiatives?
Okay, so I primarily serve as what we call a fractional CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. So that's exactly what it sounds like. It's getting that person in a fraction of the time. In other words, you don't have the overhead, an operational cost full time.
So and you're just to break it down, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're sort of working like a contractor, except obviously this is just more high level.
Yes, I am a contractor.
So you can work with a few different clients and be this fractional CMO.
Absolutely. So, you know, it's interesting because this came up in a dinner conversation recently with a group of multi-million-dollar business owners. So that answers your first question. I work with small businesses because, yes, small businesses also make millions of dollars. Multi-million-dollar small businesses. I don't work with businesses under 3 million, and most of my businesses are over 10 and up. So just so you understand that.
Right.
They often fall in the luxury marketplace. I've kind of expanded beyond that. I mostly work with businesses where what they're selling is a discretionary expense. They're not selling things that are necessities, although many of them may think, I mean, we all ladies like to think diamonds are necessities. Yes, I do work with a diamond dealer, but not actually a necessity. So working with those kind of customers, clients, to really help them drive home and be customer centric. So I think that answers your question about who I work with, and how I work with them is in this fractional capacity. So we work on a retainer basis. We are theirs for whenever and however they need us. And we work with lots of different clients. The thing that came up recently that I thought was really interesting, and I get this question a lot, is A, do you specialize in my industry? The answer is no. B, what about working with a fractional is beneficial to me? I'm only getting part of your time. Well, A, I don't work with just one industry, because what you need when you're hiring someone to work on your marketing is someone that understands and is an expert at marketing, not at diamonds, not at dentistry, not at hotels, insert whatever it is, healthcare benefits, all of these different things. What you need is someone that knows marketing inside and out. And by extension of that, someone who really understands how to get in the mind of your customer. And from a fractional standpoint, the benefit you get of working with someone fractional that has multiple clients is my experience set is at multiple touch points in the marketplace. So I can give you a read on what's really happening in the marketplace and how consumers are spending or not spending their money.
Right. Thank you for explaining that. So now we're going to really get into a really interesting conversation, and I want to welcome people who are watching on YouTube or my Facebook or my personal LinkedIn profile. Thank you, and thank you to those of you listening on the replay. As you know, Amy, a lot more people see this on the replay, but I still like to do it live because it's just an energy thing, and it scratches that itch of me wanting to be a broadcast journalist like 35 years ago. So. Thanks for bearing with me. So one of the things when you and I talk, you often say that businesses spend too much time talking about themselves. And I want you to kind of define that, because there's different types of businesses in our world. Like there's people like me who have a small business. I'm certainly not at 3 million, but yet. But there's the people who are like me, who are speakers, authors, coaches, people who are their own brand. And that's sort of like one sort of industry, if you will. But then you have like the types of clients that you talked about in the luxury market, or, dentistry or hotels or health, things like that. So talk to me about, like, when you say people talk too much about themselves, in air quotes, explain what you mean by that.
So, the challenge is in marketing, let me back up. Across the board, human nature, we like to talk about ourselves. We want it to be all about us. And so when you go to sell something and you're a small business, and so the business especially is you, and whether you're an entrepreneur, so I want to get something clear here, whether you're an entrepreneur who has a small business that is in the hundreds of thousands of dollar range, or you're an entrepreneur who has a business that's in the millions of dollar range, you still feel very personally connected to that business. So you want to talk all about how wonderful you are. Here's the thing, your customer really doesn't give a crap how you feel about yourself. They don't care how wonderful you think your business is. They, by human nature, want to talk about them, and they want you to talk about them. So businesses talk about themselves too much when they're listing all of the features and the values, the value monetary attached to those features, like they're laundry listing all the ways that you should fall in love with them.
Right.
You now have entered the sea of sameness. You're doing what everyone else is doing. If you can cut through all of that and get right to the heart of what is driving their behavior, what is their pain point, that deep need, what's the consequence of that, meaning how does that manifest itself, what do they tell you about, and how do you uniquely solve it? And you're only talking about your unique solution to what they will feel is unique pain point. Now you're talking about yourself.
Right.
Solving their pain points.
Right.
If you're talking about your features and benefits, this is the most important thing. If you're talking about your features and benefits and you're going to list them all out, you have to memorize the next phrase. It's very important. If I'm going to list out, I do this and I do this and I do this and I do this, or we, then I want you to be ready to say, and would you like fries with that? Because all you've done is given them a menu of options.
Exactly.
Where if I can say, Kate, I hear you, I see you, and you're suffering from, dealing with, tasked with, you have this obstacle, and here's how I help you solve it, it goes away. Now that person's leaning in. Oh my gosh, she's talking to me. She's not talking about herself. She's talking about me. This is a reason to talk. So if your marketing, when you read it, is all how amazing you are, you need to scrap it and start over and talk about them first.
Exactly. I'm so glad that you specified that, because when I started out, I mean, before I created Standing Out Online, I had 3 other iterations over the years of my own business. First, I was in video and photography, and that was in the early 90s before digital even existed.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went in, then I had my own PR business for a while, and it was Paine Associates. Then I shifted in 2014 and I started Standing Out Online because I had a whole new focus with, helping people with their development of their personal brand, leveraging the LinkedIn platform and PR. So all of those things fell in, but Standing Out Online says so much more than Paine Associates, right? So that was one thing that I woke up to. But I used to do the same thing. I used to do the features of this, and I used to talk about how I did it. Nobody really cares about the how until once they're in your, you're working with them, then they want to know the how, but they don't need to know it in advance. They really want to know if you can achieve results for them, right? Right. So this leads me to, when we were in the green room talking about this, your business card. And I want to have a little bit of a conversation about business cards. Some of you may be listening to this on the podcast, so bear with me while I describe the business cards a little bit, the physical aspect of them. So Amy, I'm holding up your business card. It is a square business card with rounded edges. It's a really nice, thick paper. It's got a nice quality. And then on the back, you have a quote. And this one says, "Don't just know your customer, understand why they buy." Which is interesting because just a moment ago, you actually referred to this whole thing about why they buy. So hold that thought, everybody. And then I'm going to show up my business card. So this is my business card, Standing Out Online, rounded edges, nice card stock. Amy's is better. And on the back, I have my contact information, and I also have a photo of me holding a laptop. So it's not just a headshot, because my business name is Standing Out Online. And I go to a lot of networking events. So this way they're going to remember me because my photo is going to be a little bit different. It's not just the headshot, and by way of my name of my business too. So when you and I were talking about this, Amy, I wanted you to speak to 2 things. I wanted you to speak to your quote, which I'll read again. Don't just know your customer, understand why they buy. And I know on your cards, you have different quotes on different cards. And you had mentioned why you specifically didn't want to put your photo on your card and your strategy behind that. So it takes all kinds of strategies, right? But you got to do what is in alignment with you. So I'd love you to speak to that.
Okay. So first of all, I want you to hold my card up again and do something else.
Okay. The front or the back?
I want you to hold it and look at the edge.
The edge.
You'll see that it's actually a brand color, and it's colored my brand color, so that
blue and white.
At any time you're looking at the card, you're experiencing the brand.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. So, and similar
yes.
Similar to mine.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So now some of the thought process here, the quote on the back, and I have a series of cards. I do have some cards that are what you have there, what are called Amyisms, and you'll see that's branded down in the corner of little things I say. If I go to certain networking events, eWomen Network, big conferences and things like that, I tend to use those cards more that have that kind of quote on the back. I do have a different card that's exactly the same, except the quote on the back is talking more about, it is about us, but it's a tease that gets them into the kind of results that we deliver. Now, the reason I don't have my photo on the card is because of what we talked about earlier and who my ideal customer is.
Right.
My ideal customer is a more renegade corporate person. So let's look at it this way.
I've never heard you describe it like that before. Yeah. I love that.
So
renegade. Ooh.
They are the renegade. If they ever were in corporate, they have left that in the dust and they are entrepreneurs. But at the end of the day, what they are looking for is extreme expertise. And my card screams that.
Yes, it does. It sure does.
And I'm not saying that when you put a photo on it, it isn't expertise, but for this audience and my audience, the photo depletes it. The other thing is you don't get my card unless you've met me and you know me.
Right.
So I don't hand them out unless I'm asked. I don't pass my cards out unless I'm asked. So
Never,
it very much is a calling card. And it also screams luxury and high end because, again, working with a fractional CMO and working with someone with my years of experience is not inexpensive in nature. It's very valuable, but it is not cheap. Let's say that. So my card also helps demonstrate that, because when you're selling and you're trying not to sell all about yourself, you want to start the foundation of them understanding where you're coming from.
Right.
What they're gonna do.
So I love how you just explained that, because you're illustrating who your audience, who your client is, and what they're going to respond to. So you have created your marketing and your first impression in a way that is in alignment with that. And so, with me being, my personal brand is about, PR, personal brand development, visibility, how you show up, what are ways that you can show your expertise going beyond your social media and everything. So I have created the look and feel of my assets, print and digital, to reflect that.
Absolutely.
Because I am my business. Now, interesting side note, and I'm certainly not trying to make this about me. I'm also recognizing that as I'm in my 11th year of business, if I want to try to sell this business in 10 years, and it's not something I'm doing right now, it can't be all about Kate Paine, because someone else may come in. So I'm starting to make a transition over time to have it be more standing out online and my team versus just Kate Paine. So there's a brand and then there's a personal brand, so anyway.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure you have found that with some of your clients, the person who's the face of the company may have their own kind of personal brand, and maybe they do things not on the side, but they do things because that's something they're developing. Maybe they like to speak on stage or something. Yeah. So,
it's very interesting. And if we just take your card as an example, the photograph of yourself, you're standing, not sitting. And it's very obvious you're standing. You're standing out online. You have the computer. So it's very intentional.
Right.
If you also look at the way the photo is inset into your card, the shape lends itself to the O in online. So everything about the card is leading you in that direction, and it's reinforcing the visual images that come along with the name standing out online. I think one of the things that people forget is that how you choose to communicate has to go beyond just the words you say. It has to be what the written words are and how you appear in imagery. Absolutely. And those sorts of things, because all of that reinforces, because people engage with information differently.
Exactly.
The number one thing you want them to do is feel comfortable. You never want to confuse them, because a confused customer doesn't buy.
Exactly. So thanks for doing the little business card thing, because I do think that's something that sometimes people think of in a very formulaic way. Oh, I need a business card, and I'm just going to go to some online thing and order 500 and call it a day and whatever, and pick a logo. Or maybe people go into some kind of a do-it-yourself graphic design tool and pick a logo. And you know what? When you're getting started and costs are an issue, that's fine. But also keep in mind how you're showing up in all the things. Like, is your website, your business card, there's got to be a look and feel that is consistent and unified.
So I want to chime in. In there for a second, because you said at the very beginning, the name of my agency is Amy Matthews Integrated.
Yes.
That's the element of the approach of what we do, because we take customer-centric and we marry it with integrated marketing solutions, which means You have to be consistent in all the ways you appear
Yes.
with your potential customers. And once you have them as customers,
Right.
you can't bait and switch them. You can't have
Right.
a very joking around Instagram and a very buttoned up brand if they walk through the door or meet with you.
Right.
And vice versa. It is easier to go from serious to a little more casual as things develop and people get to know you, but they get confused. It needs to be integrated so it makes sense to them and they don't feel lost in the process.
Exactly. All right. So let's see. Many of our listeners actually are solopreneurs. I don't even really like to use that term anymore, but I'm saying that so that people can relate, or small business owners. What is one simple shift they could make that maybe they haven't considered in their marketing? Because some of them could be startups. I mean, to be fair, all types of people watch my show or listen to my podcast. So they could be startups. They could be 3 years in. They could be well established.
That you have to convince your customer all the ways in which you bring value, and that you have to over deliver in your marketing of all these traits that make you worth the investment, when in essence, they will hands down pay your fee if you solve the most important issue for them.
Can you give us an example, even if it's, like a made up, but to make a point, to illustrate the point?
Absolutely. So say I am, okay, put me on the spot. Let me think for a second. Okay, I'm going to give you a healthcare example. Okay. Say I am, and it helps with a personal journey, because if you follow me on LinkedIn at all, you see that my headshot changed very recently, and the headshot changed dramatically. So say you help clients, patients, whatever you call them, with weight loss, and you're selling a weight loss solution. The challenge is everybody's doing that, right? What if you could reposition it and you could talk about that the underlying issue is that they just don't feel like themselves. Now let's go deeper and say that you're only talking to women. And now we're going to get into what are the reasons why they don't feel 100%. What if the byproduct of fixing some hormonal and metabolic things was that you also lost weight, you also slept better, you also didn't have crazy mood swings, you also didn't feel this anxiety all the time, and you lost 50 plus pounds. So it's about getting to the root cause of what they need. I could talk about weight loss, but now I'm competing with insert 100 different companies here.
Brands. Yeah,
or I could talk about the underlying root cause that they don't feel like themselves or feel well.
Right. Great example. I'm so glad to have you on. So when you work as a fractional CMO, I mean, you've already described what it is. Talk about the types of services that you offer your clients, because, marketing is a big umbrella, right? There's market, there's social media marketing, there's the marketing side of metrics and keeping track of numbers for outreach and stuff. So when you are working with your clients as a fractional CMO, what are the sort of the spotlight services that you offer them?
So one of the things that I think is really helpful is understanding what makes you unique. I talked about unique solutions and things like that. And I will often talk about that I'm a part of Dan Sullivan's strategic coach program. And one of the great tools that they have, and you can go look it up and learn all about it, is unique ability.
I'm looking at the app again right now.
Yes, there you go. I've got books over there. And and I also have the unique ability book.
10X is easier than 2X, or
Yes.
Dan Sullivan, just so you all know.
Yes. And so, but unique ability is this interesting concept, and not claiming any of that is theirs. And they have a wonderful course you can go through. And they also have a book and workbook you can buy. For me, it was understanding that what I brought to the table and bring to my clients is really threefold. One is strategic marketing, this ability. So now I'm going to take that, lovely jargony word, words and say it's the ability to boil things down and look at it from a holistic approach of all the different ways we have to touch a customer, talk to them, who they are, why they buy, all of those things, and look at that as this large umbrella. And second is problem solving. Figuring out the customer is all about problem solving. Mm-hmm. It's about how do I get from point A to they buy? Mm-hmm. And that is a problem and a puzzle. And that is something that I relish in doing. Kate and I've had many conversations where she's watched my brain and my face go. And you know when my head starts to tilt to the side, something's coming. I know. And I have a lot of friends who pick up a pen.
Your gears are always turning. Always.
Yeah. And so they pick up a pen. They're ready. They know something's about to happen. And then the third piece of that is messaging. How do we translate that into powerful messaging? But messaging, in my opinion, isn't about being catchy or gimmicky. What if I could tell you that working with us, we're going to help you with messaging that resonates with your ideal customer and, more importantly, cuts through the clutter in the marketplace. Consumers, whether they're businesses or individuals, are inundated with messages constantly. Mm-hmm. Right. How do we cut through that? Right. So that's what we do. We come in, we serve as a fractional CMO. We also have website services. We also design and develop content. We do social media. Anything a traditional marketing agency would do for you, my team can do.
In a much more bespoke way.
Yes, in a much more bespoke way, and designed not for your brand, but for your customer and who you're trying to attract. Exactly. So that's kind of in a nutshell, and we do that.
Our work here is done. Thanks, Amy.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, that's what's so important. So, as you know, you and I have talked about, that I'm all about storytelling. And it's so funny because when I think of that term storytelling in air quotes, I always think like there's an eye roll. Back when I was going to college and I was a journalism major combined with English, we didn't ever call anything we did back then storytelling. We were learning how to report on the news. We were learning how to be ethical in journalistic standards. We were learning all kinds of things, but we might say a news story, but we never said we're telling a story, because telling a story, especially back then, which would have been the late 80s, would make it almost seem made up, right? Mm-hmm. Now, when we get into the whole world of marketing and things, now storytelling is kind of like another catchphrase, right? Yeah. Buzzword. And, but when I work with my clients, as you know, Amy, and I'm helping them specifically with their personal brand development and how to leverage their LinkedIn presence, I interview my clients for their slice of life story, because that story, it's not just one that's pulled out of the air that they have. It's related and relevant to who they work with and why they're good at what they do to achieve the result that they can do for the client.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how would storytelling fit in with your description of customer-centric marketing?
It's very interesting because that is exactly what you're doing. So you're taking the customer on a journey. A lot of our customers, what we design for them is something called a message map. And it is telling a story and taking them on the journey from where they are to where is potential for them to be. Most of the clients that I work with, their number one thing is growth. They're looking to accelerate and have accelerated sustainable growth.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I know lots of businesses talk about this. These are people that are there and ready to really move, whether they want to build a business that they're going to work for the rest of their lives or whether they want to build something that's sellable.
Right.
But building that story and weaving that narrative is so important, no matter what size your business is. Right. It's why a couple of things I'll get on a soapbox for is...
Oh, I love it when you get on a soapbox.
Do not invest in sending people to other people's websites. enter in all the things you can buy and sign up for funnels, courses, things like that. You need them on your own website because you are basically paying them to build their SEO. Otherwise, rookie mistake, and everybody falls for it because you fall for all the glitz and glamour that's out there.
Right.
So send them to you and then weave that story. A website is a funnel. Take them through and have them be told a story, but more importantly, have them choose and select their story. So what you're doing is setting up things on a website, on your social media, in networking meetings, in everywhere you appear, in if you're doing print advertising, if you're doing radio, if you're doing television, you're allowing them to self-select in the direction. So I remember when my daughter was really little, there were stories where they were digital stories, and what they chose would influence the outcome, and a different ending would come.
Right.
You want to build that for your customers and how they interact with you. They've said, this is my main pain point. So you're taking them down a path where every email they get, everything that's delivered to them, if you're text messaging, if you're meeting with them, if you're delivering them content, insert the ways, or on web pages, is geared around the thing they've said is important to them.
Right.
That's how you tell the story, but you're not telling a story about you. You're telling a story about their journey from pain point to solution.
Right.
And that's how storytelling and customer-centric and all of that rolls into one. What happens is too many times we slip into the talking about us, putting ourselves in the story. If you're in the story as more than a supporting character, you've missed the mark.
Well, I've had a lot of people when they work with me go, does anybody really care about this? And I'm like, but my clients mostly are their own brand. And so you're not necessarily talking about, it's not like, I always kind of say this, and I say this from stage a lot. Your LinkedIn profile and using your story is all about you, but your profile is not all about you. Do you know what I mean? We're talking about the story so that we're making a connection. Because when you make a connection with your prospect or people that you network with or whatever, that connection builds relationship. Relationship leads to conversations. Conversations may lead to a transaction. So when you're sharing your story from the standpoint that I'm talking about it, you are you're showcasing why you're the right person. Like when you know how when you go to and I'm saying not just saying this to you, Amy, but when you go to an event and the speaker who's a really good speaker will say, if you came here to learn X, you're in the right room because I know how to do X and let's get going, because you want to know that the person you're going to hire and make a big investment in knows their stuff.
Absolutely. Right? And you know what, this whole concept of that people buy from people they know, like, and trust. Yes. They buy from brands they know, like, and trust.
Yep.
One of the other things I like to say is that you want them to know that they found the right place.
Exactly.
So an example I often give is, say you're at an event, okay? And you have a booth, a table, whatever you envision that to be. It could be a small table. It could be booths like Kate and I are used to with these mega things going on and all this activations and this huge branding center and all that. Say there are 100 people in line at your booth, okay? And you have 20 minutes. That's all you got. You got 20 minutes. What if I could tell you that in that group of 100, only 7 are going to buy from you? 15, including those 7, are maybes right now. 25s are kind of a lukewarm maybe. And 75 of them are hard-nosed. They got in the wrong line or they have no intention to ever buy, right?
I love this visual.
So now what if now I got 20 minutes and I got 75 people that aren't interested? What if I told you they're the first 75 people in line? Now you're panicked, right? Now you're like, oh God, what do I do?
Right.
But paint the picture for yourself of the ability to ask a single question and you get the most powerful answer you need, which is no, and 75 that aren't interested step out of your line. The average person might go, holy crap, I now only have 25. I'm saying no. Now I'm like, oh, thank God, I got 20. I can now work with this.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, what if question 2 gets 10 more of them out of the way? Remember, you had 25 that were lukewarm. You got 10 of those out of the way. Of the 25, 7 are buyers, 15 are hot, 25 all in, are kind of in that still kicking the can. Now
Right.
those 10 are out of the way. You're down to 15 people.
Mm-hmm.
Now in 20 minutes, can I sell 15 people? What I can do is get them to the next stage.
Mm-hmm.
And of those 15, I know 8 of them, it's probably a couple more questions. And then 8 of them, most of them are probably going to get out of the way too. Now I'm left with the 7 who are going to buy.
Right.
Now, what I just did was tell you the story of getting through that thing.
Right.
What people are most afraid of, and I will say this with all love and compassion, the smaller your business, the more you are afraid of the word no. It is the best word you can hear in marketing because you're getting them out of your way.
Right.
You don't want to spend 20 minutes talking to the person, and we've all done it, that has no intention of ever buying from you. And what you did was left the person at the back of the line who needed you desperately, has walked away and found a lesser solution because they never heard what they needed to hear, which is how you were going to solve that problem.
Right. You made me think of something that I don't ever talk about, actually.
Okay.
So when people,
this is often how Kate and I's conversation.
I know. This is why we're having coffee together.
And I'm mixing coffee and
wait, before I get into this, for anybody who's watching, because I can see there's people online watching, if you have any questions for Amy about customer-centric marketing, any of the things we're talking about, please put something in the chat, in the comments, and we will get your question answered. If you're watching on the replay, you can still put your question in. Just tag me or Amy, whether it's on LinkedIn or Facebook, and we will answer you, even if it's 2 weeks from now. So one of the things when people ask me how I work, I'm like, I have 2 ways of working together. I have my LinkedIn program, which is my 3-month, and I have my my higher premium level media impact program, which is a larger investment. And but I have, and I've never said this out loud before, I also have what I call back pocket offers. So sometimes, depending on the conversation you're having, and I'm saying this to illustrate a point, with a person who might be standing in that line that you talked about, is I'm listening to them. So if one of my 2 things isn't the right fit for them, I already know how else I might be able to help them. So I have what I call a back pocket offer, which I can be prepared to talk about or get them on a call to talk about, right? To kind of to describe that. Again, it also goes back to when we talked about at the very beginning of our show, when you talked about the features and benefits, right? So sometimes that back pocket offer isn't something or a service that is within that back pocket offer that you have, is something that's going to be part of the how that comes through once you are working with that customer.
Yes.
So
it's interesting. I think most people have them. If you're watching this and you don't, and you're a solopreneur or a coach, or that a big part of what you do is working with you, you need to have them, because otherwise you're leaving money on the table.
Exactly.
The other thing that I will tell you I do, and so I'm going to kind of out myself, because now there will be people who
I just outed myself. Now everybody's going to be like, what's your back pocket offer?
Yeah. But the good news is they'll forget. So I do something that I actually learned a long time ago from a woman who was very active in eWomen Network early on when I was Kimberly Alexander. She's from Colorado. And I do what I call deep dives. I sell hours. Okay.
Yep.
You cannot go on my website and find that.
Oh, right.
And I only sell it in 2 scenarios. One, I'm not sure whether we're a good fit or not, or how it's going to go, but I think that it might be good.
Yeah.
Or I really want you to have the experience of what having someone like me as a part of your team, because that's really what we are. My whole team becomes part of your team. I want you to experience what that's like.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of that time, these deep dive hours, I know, and I really kind of know within 1 or 2 hours, whether I'm open to continuing the relationship
Right.
and being fractional,
Right.
or whether I'm ready to offer you other options of who you should talk to, because you can figure that out pretty quickly. And so I think that for most companies, it's about having something extra for them. And most of the people I deal with from a client standpoint, for me, all have that. They all have options and the ability to tailor, because they're not selling cookie cutter things.
Right.
If you're selling cookie cutter things, then I would say to you wholeheartedly, get investors in your company, because you need a Coca-Cola budget, because you need to market that way. And if you aren't doing those things, my other big tidbit and key for anyone listening is that you do not have to use every marketing channel available to you unless you're working with a Coca-Cola marketing budget. And I'm guessing that unless one of those big brands happens to be listening today, you're not working with that kind of budget. We just don't have that. So you can't, there is no reason to be on every social media platform.
Amen.
Man. You need to be,
Amen.
wait for it. You want to hear the big thing? You need to be where your ideal customer is. It is irrelevant to me whether you like being there or not. Irrelevant.
I agree with you 100%. I had somebody say the other day that they were thinking about not being on, that they personally, which I completely respect this, they personally didn't want to be using Meta anymore. They didn't want to be on Facebook and Instagram. And I said, well, wait, before you decide that decision, and I hear you, where is your client coming from though? I said, where is your client living? She goes, well, they're on LinkedIn. I'm like, okay, well then great. LinkedIn is one of your channels for so many reasons, right? But if they're still kind of hanging out over on those other ones, you might not want to just disappear from there, because they won't see you. Not everybody is active on LinkedIn. And I'm not saying, again, I believe me, I do not need to be on every channel. But maybe, if what you do is more visual, maybe you want to be on Instagram and LinkedIn. Maybe you want to be, if it's more informal, maybe you want to be on Facebook and LinkedIn. So
I ask my people to go a little,
what you're saying. Sorry.
I ask them to go a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
You have to know why they're on the channel.
Exactly.
So
I was making an assumption. You're exactly right.
I'll give you an example. Personally, Amy is on Facebook and Instagram. I'm not making purchase decisions there. I'm looking at people I follow that rescue dogs. Yeah. I'm looking at trying to think. People I love to, Kate knows this, I love to bake and decorate cookies. So I'll look at people that do that.
Yep.
I love to crochet. It's one of the ways that I keep myself from thinking about my business is I will listen to audiobooks, watch TV, and crochet, because then I've got my brain going in 2 different ways. I don't got time to think about work, that sort of thing. So if you are on those channels trying to sell to them when they're not in a space to be sold to, you're wasting your time. Stop getting on that hamster wheel.
I agree, for sure.
Doesn't mean you can't show up with personal stuff there so they feel like they know you.
But depending on what that person does, and this person actually has a really interesting business that a lot of people would really be interested in, is to put more out in those places, though, about like little stories about what that customer is what you're doing with that customer.
Yes.
So, I mean, she's a ghostwriter, so, she helps.
I love that.
Look, I mean, so that kind of topic, you could still be personal, but still convey interesting tidbits so that people have an idea. It's kind of like what I do with some of my behind the scenes stuff. Like when we're at an eWomen Platinum event or we're at the international conference, I'm showing all the different things that are going on in the area. Or I met an author, or I met one of the keynote speakers or something, and I've asked a question and I post about that. And so it's not just me. It's showing, this is the kind of stuff that gets people's attention, because there's a lot of noise out there.
It's also the number one reason people don't market themselves is because when you insist or buy into that I have to be everywhere, you cease to be anywhere for
Exactly.
a variety of reasons. One, you're posting the same content everywhere and you have different audiences on those platforms. Two, it's not sustainable. You can't do that. I would rather you be in a place that resonates with your ideal person in a way that resonates with them. I'll give you an example. We go back to the business card, and that my business card speaks volumes to who I am as a business, way more than it gives you my name and phone number.
Right.
So I have started a shift to show that I give more content, that I go deeper on things. And so the channel you'll find me on talking about the things I do business-wise is LinkedIn. I have abandoned the others in that capacity because they yield so few results for me. It's not worth the time constraints.
And then for someone like me,
yes,
who is known for what I do, my personal Facebook page I've had going pretty much since Facebook was invented. And then when I started on the speaking circuit and traveling and everything, then all these people are connecting with me on Facebook, my personal Facebook. And so now I know that's where a lot of my existing clients, my family and friends, of course. So I do kind of have to pay attention to that because I have a lot of connections there of people who are in my world, in my networking entrepreneurial world. So it all and that's why I love that you and I are having this conversation, because we're both in marketing, but we both do two completely different things. We're of the same mindset because we have similar values about what we do, which is why I love you so much. And yet the focus is it's just, there's no cookie cutter approach. And it's just like when somebody says, especially when they start out, I'll go, well, who's your ideal client? People will go, what do you mean? Who's anybody? And I'm like, nope. Just like you don't want to be everywhere online or wherever, you don't want to just reach out to, you don't want to try to get anybody as your client because you can't serve everyone.
No.
And nor should you want to.
No, again, going back to, unless you're Coca-Cola, Nike, Under Armour, list those things where you're Apple, where you're everywhere, then yes, it's a different ball game. But most of the people that are watching this aren't in that realm. Right. Now, I will tell you, there are corporate subsets in all those big companies that do exactly what we're talking about, that do get down to that micro level, because they're the thing to think about is, if you think about a Coca-Cola again, that's the umbrella brand. What about Fanta? What about Sprite zero sugar cherry flavor? You're talking about brand groups that now we've gotten down to, they've niched it way down.
Yep.
So you have to think of your business as one of those little tiny pieces of one of those major corporations.
Right.
But there's a lot of market share in that little tiny piece.
Sure is.
So you have to be really careful if you're trying to carve out this piece of the puzzle, that you're not attracting all of this, because you're never going to get to that piece.
Right. Oh, Amy, I could talk to you for hours on this. So we're going to wind down here. So everybody who's watching on the replay, again, if you have any questions about what we've talked about with customer-centric marketing, please tag Amy or me. And if you tag me, and I'll text Amy I'll text Amy and say, hey, go into the chat and answer the question. So please let us know, Amy, what are the best ways that people can contact you and get in touch with you?
So one of the best things you can do is go to amilc.com, and you can interact with us there. You can absolutely email me. I saw that flash up on the screen as well. And just be aware that you're going to get a lovely email back from me that may not be from me, because my amazing executive assistant will get in there and handle things and get you to where you need to go. Right. And you can interact with me on LinkedIn and follow me there. Check out the blog that I write a couple times a month to get real deep on what kind of marketing is going to really propel you and move you forward, because you want to be focused on your customer and you want to break through all that clutter with a message that really is going to resonate with them.
Right.
And those are really the best ways. Those 3 ways are the best ways to get to me.
Good. Thank you.
You can also always come to an eWomen Network Atlanta meeting and find me in the room. I will be there.
Amy is one of the nicest, most generous people I know. And she's a really, really good listener. And if you have any questions, even if you just pull her aside at an eWomen event or whatever, or you want to get on a quick call with her or something and ask her a question, she will make the time to do that. She's done that for me long before we became friends. And I just think the world of you, Amy. So thank you. I have one little silly, fun question to ask you that I want to end with. So back when I first met you,
knowing you so well, I'm a little nervous, but
no, you don't need to be nervous. So back when I first met you, you had showed me some of the advertisements, the actual print ads that you had done in a high-level, high-end magazine for one of your clients. And I said, who wrote the copy? And you said, I did. And so keeping that in mind, keep that as your frame of reference.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to write a one-sentence little blurb for yourself in a luxury magazine print ad, what would you say?
Oh, goodness. I think I would go right back to what we've talked about is only work with me if you're ready to stop talking about yourself and experience what real sustainable growth is meant to be.
Excellent answer. And I had no idea you were going to say that.
Neither did I, since I had no idea it was coming. So there we go.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Amy, for having coffee with me today. And anybody who's watching this, you can watch this on my YouTube channel for Standing Out Online. You can also watch it on my, the replay will automatically play in the LinkedIn feed. LinkedIn does it automatically now, which is really nice. You do have to create a LinkedIn event though. So you'll see it there. But anyway, it will live on my YouTube channel. And Amy, I just can't thank you enough.
Thank you for having me. This was fun. I've watched from afar, including on the other side of the world a lot. So I'm excited to be a part of it. All
right. Well, thank you so much. Please stay on so that as soon as we end, we just can kind of close out here on a personal level. And we'll look forward to seeing everybody on the replay.
Fantastic.